Welcome back to another playthrough series. This time it's going to be Dungeonquest. Yes, the extremely brutal, die quickly, hardly ever win game of adventuring through a Dragonfire dungeon and trying to get to the very center of the board here, which is the Dragon's Treasure Hoard. Stealing as much treasure as you can possibly get and getting back out of the dungeon to these exit squares at each corner of the board. And it's a very difficult task to do. I'm going to be playing this solo with one character. I'll show you that in a minute. It's basically a tile laying game. You reach into a bag, and I'm using an AEG, one of the tomb bags filled with tokens that will be placed on the board to create the dungeon. And I'll be using one character. Like I said, I'll show you in a moment. So I'm going to zoom in on a few things and explain them a little bit. And then the next episode, we are just going to jump right in to Dragonfire Dungeon. What I'm going to attempt to do in the solo playthrough is to add a little challenge to the game. I'm going to be trying to get to the dragon's treasure, steal some of it, and get out of here. And that's going to be the goal of the solo playthrough. Whether that's going to happen or not, I'm not sure. So let me zoom into a few different parts of the board. I'll explain what they are, what they do, and like I said, next episode we'll get right into it. See how long I can survive. Maybe I can win, I don't know. But let me zoom in some parts of the board and explain a little bit, and then we'll get going. So first up here, we're going to be using Lindell, and he's an elf warlord of some such nature. He has a neat little miniature here. I don't know how well it's going to focus, but again, with all Fantasy Flight games, highly detailed minis, really, really nicely done. So he's going to be starting in this corner of the board. Right here is a sun tracker, and it starts, I don't know if this is going to zoom out way up here, and every turn the sun tracker is going to move one space down towards the end of the board. So we only have a limited amount of time to get into the dragon's treasure, steal some stuff, and get out again. And like you will see, it is very difficult to do. All right, so Lindell's specs, he has 15 health points. He has a fight ability of 6, an acrobatics ability of 6, a defense of 6, and a luck of 5. And his special ability is after rolling dice, that's a strength is the 6, not a fight, it's strength. After rolling dice for an attribute test, you may re-roll one die. You must accept the second result. And that's going to come in pretty handy because you're going to have to do quite a few tests in the game. Some of them are instant kills. If you fail your test, you're dead. So this is a very unforgiving game. Pretty quick as well. He is starting off with just one randomly drawn, I forget what these are called, ruins or treasures. It's a teleportation rune. It says discard when you're about to move. Move to any adjacent space. If the space is unexplored, place a dungeon chamber as normal. If you encounter a monster, you cannot escape it. What I'm going to do here for combat rules, I'm using, I think it's called a classic solo combat chart. It's basically rolling 1d6. And they get really nice d6s in this game. Oh, and I should mention, this is the 3rd edition of the game. I do not have the revised edition. It's changed a few things, the combat in particular, and a couple of other things to do with torches and whatever. I'm going to be using all the standard 3rd edition rules, with the exception of combat, which I'm going to explain. It's just the classic solo combat. So if you roll a 1 or a 2, your hero takes 1 wound. If you roll a 3 or a 4, the monster and hero both take a wound. If you roll a 5, the monster takes 1 wound. If you roll a 6, the monster takes 6 wounds. And I'll show you the monsters here in a second. So that's kind of explaining. So we're going to start off in this corner. We're going to start laying a tile either here or here. We'll see how the turns work as we play. So let me zoom in a little bit of the card decks. We'll look at the monsters. And then I think that's probably enough explanation. We'll just get right into how the game plays after that. All right, so along the side of the board, I put the board kind of sideways here to keep the cards off to this side and then the main play surface. It doesn't really matter which orientation the board's sitting in. There are 4 corners to the board. It's up to a 4-player game. So the card decks, we have the Dungeon deck, the Crypt deck, the Corpse deck, the Door deck, the Search deck, the Trap deck, the Treasure deck, and the Catacombs deck. So lots and lots of cards in this game, all have different effects. And we'll see them in action as we draw them and play through. Just zoom in on our monsters here, explain them a little bit, the dragon cards, and then I think I'll go over the rules summary somewhat. There's a page in the back of the rules book that kind of explains it all. And after that, we're going to get into seeing how long we can survive. Maybe steal some dragon's treasure, maybe get killed in the first space, I don't know. But let me show you the monsters and the dragon cards. Okay, so on to monsters. I put them here in rank order from the weakest to the strongest. We have some skeletons, we have sorcerers, we have trolls, we have golems, and we have demons. And so what I'm going to do is when we run into these, as we explore the dungeon, I'm just going to roll a 4-sided die. So if we run into demons, I'll roll a d4, and whatever I roll a 3, 1, 2, 3, we'll take this token. Now on the back they have different hit points. So they can be stronger or weaker, depending on which one you get. Another thing to look at here is the dragon deck, and this is when you get to the dragon's lair. These cards are all shuffled. You're going to pull a card, and you're going to hope the dragon is asleep, because if he's not, he's going to lay a major hurting on you. And so, of course, the gist of our solo playthrough here is we want to get to the dragon's lair, steal some of his stuff, and get out of this dungeon before the sun goes down. The dragon wakes up and roams the halls and lights everything on fire, including you if you haven't escaped. I think that's just about covering everything. I was just going to go over the rules summary in the back of the page. It's the last thing. And then the next episode, we're going to get right into playing. And hopefully, it will last a while. I may get taken out very quickly. This is a very unforgiving game, but it can be a lot of fun. And so the last thing I want to cover is the rule summary, which comes in the back of the instruction manual. So player turns. You can move into an adjacent space or search the space you are in. So that's the 2 things you can do. And it tells you when you're moving or searching how that works. And we'll get into that as we play. Then there's attribute tests. Sometimes it will say, you'll run into a trap and it'll say test your luck to see if you take damage or other things happen. You can encounter monsters, and I'm going to be using the simplified solo fighting rules. You can escape from monsters. We'll still use cards to do that. There's huge card decks in this game for heroes and monsters. And the 3rd edition rules on combat are there's all this somewhat complicated card play. I'm just doing away with all that, of course, and going to the very basic d6 rolling. And so there's combat, and tells you, you're going to draw combat cards, reveal combat cards, resolve counterattacks, assign damage. There's an entirely complicated thing to do with combat, but I'm not going to be doing that. And that's basically the game. And of course, we're going to start down here in this corner. And next episode, we're just going to go right into it. So the first thing we're going to do next episode is we're either going to move 1 space up this way, draw a tile from the bag, or 1 space this way, draw a tile from the bag. And I should mention, the very first thing you do on every turn is you're going to move the sun tracker 1 space, because we're going in the morning. And of course, just to cheat a little bit again, when the sun tracker starts getting down here, you can see there's a 1 here, a 1, 2, a 1, 3. You're going to roll a die as the sun tracker hits these spots. So if you roll a die on this space and you roll a 1, dragon wakes up, you're toast, literally barbecued human, or elf in this case. And then if you go to the next space, you roll a 1 or 2, it's game over, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5. So it's possible to get to this space and just keep rolling 6 after 6 after 6 and have more turns going on, giving you a little more time to escape the dungeon, with, of course, the treasure you've stolen from the dragon. Or the more likely scenario is you don't make it out. But anyway, let's hope we have a little bit of fun here. So next episode is going to be the beginning. I'm not sure how long the episodes are going to run, maybe 10 or so minutes an episode, or until my character gets killed, which could be very quickly. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Join me next time for Dungeon Quest as we have Lindell, the adventuring elf, trying to make his way to the dragon treasure, steal some of the very sought-after goods, and get out of this dungeon before the dragon wakes up, finds him, and turns him into supper. All right, thanks for watching.